Welcome back, everybody. Is the U.S. headed towards a potential dollar crash as we try and transition to a global economy? We just talked a little bit about that, but now we've got someone else who has covered this very thoroughly. In his new book, The Day After the Dollar Crash, hedge fund manager Damon Vickers recommends a series of political, economic, and social reforms to try and help governments and investors prepare for a new world order. He joins us on set right now. Again, 9 Points Capital Management founder Damon Vickers. And Damon, thanks for coming in today.
Lovely to be with you.
All right, we just had a conversation where one of our guests called the dollar and the euro both ugly currencies. He doesn't mean ugly ducklings. He means really ugly because of long-standing problems. You've spent a lot of time digging into this. Is there a fix for this, or is this a certain crash?
It's a funny thing how all the cards seem to be falling into place, and the dominoes seem to be falling around the world at the same time. I don't think there's any mistake that what's going on in Egypt or Libya or Tunisia or what's going on in Wisconsin right now are that dissimilar. They all seem to have some thread kind of in common. And the dollar particularly, very curious, and the previous guest, looking at how the dollar can't seem to rise with all the instability. I mean, what more worse news could you have in the last week or so?
Although he did point out that when we've seen trouble in the Middle East in the past, the Gulf Wars, either of the two Gulf Wars, the dollar didn't rise then either. He said it's because we're a consumer nation, and with oil prices going higher, it's automatically going to cut into us and not make us look like a safe haven. Is that a fair assumption?
I don't know. I think if you're in the planet and you're going, oh my God, all this oil comes out of there, what if they start getting a little belligerent with each other, or hijacking tankers? I mean, who knows what's going on out there? I really would have thought the dollar would have got some life to it. So the dollar's weak, very weak. The euro as well. You
make a great point that this is all happening around the globe, that these are not very different scenarios. Probably not a huge surprise when you come out of the financial crisis that we've been through, and you start looking at all these austerity measures where people are going to push back, you're going to have unrest, we've got inflation that are coming. Is it your thesis that the countries, the nations that have strong central banks that act effectively to try and raise rates are going to be in a better position?
I don't think the banks are really strong at all. I mean, if
not here.
Yeah.
But let's say a couple of places, China's been trying to raise rates. You've seen it in Australia. A couple of places where they have acted fairly effectively.
What I'm most concerned about, what's going on the planet right now, is that we seem to have this bubble of a population. These are the students that are coming out of college and they can't find jobs, no matter how technically competent they are or how many degrees they may have. Same thing is happening here in the United States. Whether we have dependent populations in the form of large supplies of government workers, or large or countries where a very large percentage of the economy is government workforces. What do you do with them? And so we see Greece happening. We see what's happening in Wisconsin. And this is the problem of most westernized economies, is that we are all kind of mature economies. We're not able to produce finished goods on a competitive basis globally, yet we have all this debt that needs to be paid off. How the heck are we going to pay any of this debt off? It's almost impossible.
Do you have any solutions?
Well, I don't know if there are solutions. I mean, in the book, the conclusion that I came to, and I didn't write this book, I mean, it has a very titillating title. And when I said the words New World Order, I turned a couple of heads. A little shocking, the reminiscence of scary George Bush days. But
scary George Bush days. What do you mean?
Well, he made the speech in front of a New World Order and stuff like that. But I see it as that we're inevitably going to have to work this debt out, that this debt that exists on the planet is likely going to have to be what? It's going to have to be repudiated, written off. It's going to have to be worked out. We know it every day. You guys feature companies that have gone, not every day, but companies have bankruptcies. Just saw a couple of those in 2008.
So and we as a nation with treasuries, we hose the Japanese and the Chinese who have been holding all of them?
Well, I think we're hosing them by issuing more debt, and I think we're at the point where they're not taking any more debt. That's why QE2 exists.
And the Fed is now the biggest holder of these treasuries?
Well, they're the holder of the treasuries, along with a lot of Americans that have piled into debt and bonds, thinking they're getting safety. I'm not so sure that the debt is really all that creditworthy, and I'm not sure it's going to be paid off. I'm very concerned about it being paid. I don't see how it can be. And these countries, the westernized economies, need all this money to keep their funding needs going, and there isn't enough demand in the ground. It's raining outside today. It's pouring outside today. And when it rains a lot, the ground loses its ability to absorb the water. And what do? You get a flood. The world has, in a I think, a very concrete sense, lost its ability to absorb the debt, the funding needs of the westernized economies.
We issued $30 billion in 7-year notes this week, and yields are down. I mean, the vigilantes, we always say, if they're so worried, why are they hiding?
Who do we issue those to?
Whoever bought them. I mean, the point is supply came online and it was absorbed.
Who was that?
In a week where risk was off.
Who bought those bonds?
Who did buy it? Do you think it's all the Fed? You think nobody bought?
Who bought those bonds?
Could have been the Fed. Could have been the Chinese, the Japanese.
I don't think so. I don't think sales are taking place. That's why QE2 exists. They're issuing debt and printing paper and printing money because there's not the absorptive capacity of the world to absorb the debt, and that's where we are.
So what's the end of the day scenario? I mean, if you don't see a solution for it and it's a massive problem that's about to crash on our heads, what happens?
Well, I think we do have a solution. I think the solution is inevitably that we're going to have to restructure all world debt. We're going to have to realign all global currencies. This will result in a realignment of global, I would say, global authority, and inevitably you come out of it kind of where the countries are kind of born again. All clean and fresh as snow with a lot of the debt restructured. I don't see any other outcome other than that.
Damon, I hate to leave this conversation at this point because I think this is something that merits more than 4 or 5 minutes. We're out of time right now, but we'll have to have you back to go a little deeper into it.
Good. Love you guys. You did a great job, everybody.
Thanks a lot for coming on.